Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak Up English, the podcast where you improve your English step by step through real conversations.
Hi, everyone. I'm John.
And I'm Anna. On this channel, we help you build natural, confident English through listening, thinking, and real communication.
So if you're learning English and you sometimes feel stuck, confused, or overwhelmed, you're definitely in the right place.
Absolutely. And today's episode is a little different. We're going to talk about something interesting. If we had to start learning English again in 2026, what would we do differently?
Right, because now we understand much more about how the brain actually learns languages.
Exactly. And if I had to start over today, I would probably avoid many of the things that most learners do first.
Really? Like what?
Well, for example, I wouldn't start by studying grammar for hours. I wouldn't download 10 different learning apps, and I definitely wouldn't force myself to start speaking English out loud on the very first day.
That might surprise a lot of people because those things feel logical, right?
Yes, they do. They feel productive, they feel responsible, but there's a hidden problem with that approach.
And that problem is that those methods focus on the outside of language, the visible part.
Exactly, the part that you can measure, track, or show to other people.
But real fluency actually develops somewhere much quieter.
Inside your mind.
In our last episode, we talked about something many learners experience. They understand English when they listen, but when it's time to speak, their mind suddenly freezes.
Right. And many people think that happens because they don't know enough vocabulary.
But the truth is that freeze usually happens because the brain is translating.
Exactly. When someone asks you a question in English, your brain first thinks in your native language, then tries to translate into English.
And that translation process uses a lot of mental energy.
So when the pressure of conversation appears, everything just shuts down.
After that episode, many listeners asked us a really good question.
They asked, if we could start learning English again from the beginning, knowing what we know now, what would we do differently?
And that's exactly what we're exploring today.
Let's start with vocabulary, because this is where most learners begin.
Yes, people often memorize long word lists: food vocabulary, travel vocabulary, business vocabulary.
And on the surface, that makes sense. The more words you know, the more you can say, right?
In theory, yes.
But there's an important difference that many learners don't realize.
The difference between recognition and retrieval.
Recognition is when you see a word and understand its meaning.
For example, if you see the word exhausted and think, oh, that means very tired.
Exactly, that's recognition.
But retrieval is much harder.
Retrieval means that when you're speaking and you want to express that feeling, the word exhausted appears naturally in your mind.
Without translating.
Without searching.
Without hesitation.
The problem is that many vocabulary apps train recognition very well.
But they don't train retrieval.
Because the word is always right in front of you.
So you're matching a word to a meaning instead of generating it from your own memory.
And that's why learners often study hundreds of words, but still use only very simple ones like good, bad, or nice when speaking.
Because those are the only words the brain can retrieve quickly under pressure.
So if I were starting again, I wouldn't try to collect thousands of words.
Instead, you would focus on a smaller set of words, but learn them deeply.
Exactly. Use them in many contexts. Think with them. Write with them.
Because fluency isn't about knowing 10,000 words.
It's about knowing a few thousand words so well that they come automatically.
The second thing I would do differently might sound controversial.
Let me guess. Speaking?
Exactly. I would not force myself to speak on day one.
That's interesting because most advice online says the opposite.
Right. Everyone says, just speak, don't worry about mistakes.
And that advice can work for some people.
Especially extroverted people who aren't afraid of making mistakes.
But for many learners, speaking too early creates stress. Speaking is actually a very complex skill.
You have to remember vocabulary, build sentences in real time,
think about pronunciation,
and respond quickly while someone is waiting for your answer.
If your brain isn't ready yet, that situation can feel like panic.
And when that panic happens repeatedly, the brain starts associating English speaking with stress.
Instead of building confidence, you build fear.
So what would you do instead?
I would begin with silent practice.
Silent practice?
Yes, I would spend time thinking in English before trying to speak it.
Building an inner voice.
Exactly. And this inner voice is actually where fluency begins. Because when we speak, we're not creating language from nothing. We're simply expressing thoughts that already exist in our minds. So if your thoughts are in your native language, You must translate before speaking, but if your thoughts are already in English, speaking becomes much easier. One simple way to train this inner voice is something called fragmented thinking. That means you don't try to think in perfect sentences. Exactly. You start with small pieces. For example, if you see a dog on the street, instead of thinking in your native language, you simply think, cute dog, or even just dog. These small moments train your brain to use English as a thinking language, and over time, those fragments grow into full sentences. Another thing I would do differently is how I approach grammar. Let me guess, you wouldn't study it like a school subject? Exactly. Traditional grammar learning is very analytical. You memorize rules, complete exercises, and analyze sentences. But fluency isn't analytical. Fluency is intuitive. It's the feeling that something sounds right. That feeling comes from exposure. Listening, reading, hearing patterns thousands of times. Grammar explanations can still be useful, but only as a reference, not the main focus. Like a map when you explore a new city. You look at it when you're confused, but you learn the city by walking around. There's also another mistake many learners make. Let me guess, too many resources? Exactly. People download 5 apps, follow 10 YouTube channels, and buy several courses. But switching constantly between resources makes learning fragmented. Your brain never builds deep familiarity with one voice or one style. So if I were starting again, I would choose maybe 2 or 3 resources only. A podcast, a YouTube channel, and maybe a grammar reference. And then go deep with them. Finally, I think we should talk about something very important. The difference between fluency and flow. Many learners chase fluency, which they imagine as perfect English, perfect grammar, native-like pronunciation, no mistakes. But that standard is extremely high. Flow is something different. Flow means your ideas keep moving. You might make mistakes, but you don't freeze. You keep expressing yourself. And that's actually how real communication works. Even native speakers pause, correct themselves, and search for words, but the conversation keeps going. So if I were starting again, I wouldn't chase perfection. I would chase flow, because flow builds confidence, and confidence eventually leads to fluency. So if you're listening right now and feeling overwhelmed, remember this. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just start with small shifts. Focus on depth instead of quantity. Build your inner voice. Simplify your resources. And aim for flow, not perfection. Because language learning isn't about collecting information. It's about training your brain to use language naturally. And that process takes patience, consistency, and a little kindness toward yourself. So keep listening, keep thinking in English, and trust the process. Your progress might feel invisible sometimes, but your brain is building connections every single day. Thanks so much for listening to Speak Up English, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. And remember, you're not behind.